Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The Silent Rupture. There comes a moment in life when silence is no longer peaceful but unbearable. A moment when something inside you begins to scream, not in words, not even in thoughts, but in a raw, unsettling sensation that you cannot ignore. You may not be able to explain it, but you feel it with absolute certainty. You cannot continue living the same way. It feels as though an invisible crack has appeared deep within you, a rupture that quietly separates who you truly are from the version of yourself you have been pretending to be. This inner fracture does not happen by chance. It is not random, nor is it a sign of weakness. It is inevitability. Every human being, at some point in their journey, encounters this collapse of the old self. For some, it arrives disguised as exhaustion, for others, as despair or emptiness. Many people choose to ignore it. They silence the voice with distractions, anesthetize themselves with work, relationships, or endless entertainment. They tell themselves it is nothing, that life is simply stressful or difficult. But deep down, they know something more fundamental has shifted. For a few, however, for people like you, this collapse cannot be ignored. What begins as a fracture becomes a call. It is not just pain, it is an impulse, a push from within that refuses to be silenced any longer. The very structure of your life begins to feel false, like a play in which you no longer want to act. You wake up one day and realize the roles, the routines, and the expectations that once guided you now feel heavy, lifeless, meaningless. Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, described this phenomenon with startling precision. He called it the call to individuation. In his view, every human soul carries within it the drive to become whole, to integrate shadow and light, to peel away the masks created to survive and finally live authentically. The masks you built to please others, to fit in, to avoid rejection. Those masks worked for a time. They allowed you to navigate the world, to adapt to society, to avoid danger. But what was once protective has now become suffocating. The soul can no longer bear the weight of pretending. When this call arrives, life itself begins to look different. What you once considered normal reveals itself as nothing more than a carefully designed illusion. You notice the routines that keep people trapped: wake, work, consume, repeat. You see the social roles, the expectations of family, culture, and society, all demanding that you remain who you are not. The promises dangled in front of you, security, recognition, stability, suddenly appear shallow, unfulfilling, or even poisonous. Perhaps you are in a relationship that has been draining your energy for years. Outwardly, everything looks stable, but inwardly your soul is suffocating. Or perhaps you go to a job every day that pays your bills but kills your spirit, piece by piece. Maybe it is subtler, the quiet shame of disappointing your parents, the hidden fear of not being accepted by your community, or the burden of walking a path that was chosen for you but never by you. Jung warned that the greatest danger of modern life is not chaos but unconscious adaptation, the quiet acceptance of inauthenticity. The true catastrophe, he wrote, is not realizing that you are living a life that is not yours. That is why this call often emerges in the form of suffering. When the psyche has exhausted every subtle way of communicating with the conscious mind, through dreams, through fatigue, through unexplained sadness, it begins to shout. What was once discomfort turns into despair. What was once doubt transforms into anguish. What was once a whisper becomes a roar. And yet, within that roar lies the seed of transformation. This rupture, this unbearable crack, is not here to destroy you. It is here to awaken you. It is the first signal that the life you have been living has reached its limit. It is not that you are broken, it is that you are being called to be born again. This is the silent rupture, the moment when the false self begins to crumble, and the authentic self knocks at the door of your consciousness. It is painful, it is frightening, but it is also sacred. Because on the other side of this collapse lies the possibility of a life that is truly yours. The disease of normality. Most people assume that if life looks normal, then it must also be good. But there is a hidden truth that few are willing to confront. What we call normal is often nothing more than quiet despair dressed in routine. From an early age, you were taught what was expected of you. Behave. Fit in. Do what is right. Don't ask too many questions. Be grateful. And, above all, follow the path already laid out, study, get a job, find a partner, pay the bills, and keep moving forward. On the surface, it seems harmless, even safe. But beneath that surface lies a subtle poison. Jung observed that adaptation to society is necessary, but when it demands the abandonment of the self, it becomes pathological. What we call normality, he warned, is often a sophisticated form of repression. People follow rules, traditions, and social expectations not out of joy or authenticity, but out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not belonging. And so, an entire culture is built on conformity, where human beings slowly trade their truth for acceptance. Look around and you will see it everywhere. People rushing to jobs they secretly despise, smiling in photos while carrying silent sorrow, filling every free moment with noise and distraction so they do not have to face their inner emptiness. They call this life. But is it? Or is it survival masquerading as purpose? Modern culture has perfected this anesthesia. It gives you just enough stimulation to keep you quiet: television, delivery apps, likes on social media, promotions at work. These small rewards maintain the illusion that everything is fine. You are functioning, contributing, even celebrated. But deep down, something in you knows the truth. Functioning is not the same as living. Existing is not the same as being alive. Perhaps you recognize the signs in yourself. You wake up every morning already tired. You go through the motions of work or family responsibilities while feeling strangely detached, as if you are watching life through glass. You laugh when you are supposed to laugh, smile when others expect it, and yet the inner voice whispers, "This is not me." This quiet despair is not weakness. It is the beginning of awareness. Jung warned that the real danger of modern life is not madness, but massification, the transformation of the human being into a replaceable part of a machine. The more society prizes efficiency, productivity, and obedience, the less room there is for authenticity. And the cost of this obedience is devastating. People lose touch with their souls. The tragedy is not that we live in chaos. The tragedy is that we adapt to lives that are spiritually empty, believing them to be normal. People settle into marriages that drain them, jobs that suffocate them, communities that restrict them, and call it stability. They suppress their dissatisfaction, telling themselves it is just stress or bad luck, when in reality it is a sign that the life they are living was never meant for them. When you begin to notice this suffocation, when the illusion of normality starts to crack, it feels disorienting. You may even believe something is wrong with you. But in truth, that discomfort is a sign of health. It means that your psyche is resisting the deadening grip of conformity. It means that the authentic part of you is refusing to die quietly. The disease of normality is subtle, but it spreads everywhere. It convinces you that you must endure, that you must continue pretending, that everyone feels the same emptiness, so why question it? Yet deep down, you know. You know because the restlessness will not let you rest. The boredom will not let you sleep. The emptiness will not stay quiet. Jung put it simply, the unlived life is a sickness. And millions are dying of it one day at a time. Not through accidents or disease, but through the slow suffocation of the soul. The worst part is that they don't even realize it. But you do. And that awareness, painful as it is the first step. Because once you see the illusion for what it is, you cannot unsee it. The disease of normality no longer fools you. The next question is, what will you do with this truth? The language of suffering. Suffering. It is a word most people run from, a condition we are taught to treat like a defect, an illness, a personal failure. Yet Jung understood something profoundly different. Suffering is not a flaw to be corrected, but a message to be deciphered. When the soul is ignored, when the authentic self is buried beneath masks of duty and appearances, the psyche begins to protest. At first, the protest is subtle. You may feel restless, unfulfilled, or strangely disconnected. Small cracks appear in the foundation of your daily life. A dream unsettles you. A conversation leaves you inexplicably angry. A fatigue creeps in that no amount of sleep seems to cure. These are the whispers of the unconscious, gentle reminders that something is not aligned. But what happens when you ignore those whispers? The psyche raises its voice. Discomfort turns into despair. Doubt transforms into anguish. What was once a dull ache becomes collapse. And suddenly, you find yourself in the midst of what society calls a breakdown, but what Jung called a breakthrough. This suffering is not random. It is intelligent. The psyche produces symptoms not as punishment, but as guidance. Anxiety, depression, exhaustion, emptiness, these are not enemies to destroy, but signs pointing toward a deeper truth. Each one is the soul's symbolic language, urging you to look at what you have avoided. Perhaps you feel constantly anxious. That anxiety is not simply a chemical glitch, it may be the psyche's way of signaling that your life has drifted too far from your truth. Perhaps you feel chronically exhausted, even when you do less. That exhaustion is not just physical, it is the weight of living a false story. Or perhaps you feel hollow, as though no amount of success, pleasure, or recognition fills the void. That emptiness is not a defect, it is the soul crying out for authenticity. Society, however, interprets suffering as failure. If you are distressed, it tells you something has gone wrong. If you are sad, it insists you are sick. If you feel lost, it convinces you to distract yourself, work harder, buy something, take a vacation. But this cultural script is dangerous. It teaches you to silence the very signals that could lead you back to yourself. Jung's insight was clear, the psyche intentionally creates suffering when the ego resists change. It forces collapse so that something new can emerge. Like a forest fire that burns away dead wood to make space for new growth, suffering clears the ground of falsehood so that truth can root itself. It is not meant to destroy you, it is meant to awaken you. Think of your own moments of despair. Were they not also moments when life demanded something different of you? When an old relationship, job, or identity could no longer be sustained? At first, it feels like death, the death of a role, the death of a certainty, the death of the image you held of yourself. But only through that death does rebirth become possible. Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. The unconscious does not care about your comfort. It cares about your wholeness. And wholeness can only be achieved when you stop running from the parts of yourself you have denied. That is why suffering feels relentless. It is a teacher that will not stop until you listen. If you can shift your perspective, suffering becomes less terrifying. Instead of seeing it as evidence that you are broken, you can see it as proof that you are ready. Ready to shed the shell that has become too tight. Ready to confront the shadow you have avoided. Ready to stop pretending. Your pain is not meaningless. It is a threshold. A symbolic portal. If you resist it, suffering will harden into chronic despair. But if you listen, it transforms into initiation. What feels like collapse is actually the beginning of emergence. What feels like failure is the first step of freedom. You are not broken. You are being pushed to awaken. The language of suffering is simply the soul speaking more loudly than ever before. The leap into fear. Every true transformation demands a crossing. Not a physical crossing, but a psychic one. Jung described it as the critical threshold of individuation, the moment when you must abandon the safety of the familiar, even if that familiar life has become unbearable, and step into the unknown. This crossing is not gentle. It is terrifying. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into a fog so thick you cannot see where your feet will land. The rational mind trembles. The ego resists. Every part of you clings to what is known, even if the known is killing you. Jung compared this threshold to confronting the inner dragon. The dragon is not an external monster but the embodiment of every fear, doubt, and resistance that rises when you stand at the edge of change. It whispers relentlessly, "You're not ready. You'll fail. You'll lose everything. People will laugh at you. You'll regret it." The dragon shows you endless visions of disaster because it knows that if you leap, it dies. Fear, then, is not an obstacle but a guardian. It stands at the doorway between false life and authentic life, testing whether you will retreat into illusion or step forward into truth. Most people retreat. They let the dragon convince them that safety lies in staying put, in maintaining appearances, in waiting for the right moment. But there is no right moment. There is only the choice to leap or to remain asleep. The leap is frightening because it is symbolic death. The persona, the carefully crafted self you have shown the world, must dissolve. That version of you was necessary once. It protected you, helped you survive, gave you acceptance. But now it has become a polished prison. To leap is to let it go. To leap is to surrender the image, the story, and the false stability that kept you small. And yet, here lies the paradox, on the other side of fear lies life. Real life. Not survival, not performance, not conformity, but raw presence, authenticity, and freedom. The terror you feel is not a warning to turn back, it is proof that you are standing exactly where you need to be. Think of fear as a compass. Wherever it points most strongly is often where your soul is guiding you. If leaving the job terrifies you, perhaps it is because your truth is elsewhere. If ending the relationship paralyzes you, maybe it is because your soul refuses to shrink any longer. Fear signals the sacred. It tells you, here is the portal. Here is where the false must die so the real can live. Jung wrote, the encounter with oneself is at first the encounter with one's own shadow. This means that before you find freedom, you will confront everything you have avoided, the grief of letting go, the pain of rejection, the possibility of failure. These are not punishments but initiations. Each fear you face becomes a key that unlocks another part of your authenticity. And remember this, you do not need to feel ready. No one ever does. Readiness is an illusion created by the ego to postpone change. What you need is honesty and courage, the honesty to admit that you cannot stay where you are, and the courage to take one uncertain step forward. Even stumbling, even crying, even doubting, if you leap, you break the spell. You discover that the dragon was not a jailer but a threshold. That what you thought was death was in fact birth. That beyond fear lies not emptiness, but fullness. This is why fear must be redefined. It is not your enemy. It is the signal that life is waiting for you on the other side. Fear is the voice of the threshold. And if you have reached it, the choice is now before you: remain in a polished prison, or leap into the unknown where your soul can finally breathe. Radical responsibility and real life. No one is coming to save you. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, and yet it is also the most liberating. For much of life, you were conditioned to believe in the myth of the savior, that someone, someday, would step in to fix everything. You waited for your parents to see your pain, for your partner to change, for your boss to value you, for society to finally give you what you deserve. You told yourself that if you just endured a little longer, the timing would be right, the answer would arrive, the rescue would come. But Jung understood the deeper reality: individuation, the process of becoming truly yourself, cannot be lived by proxy. No guru, no therapist, no lover, no book, no system can walk the path for you. The responsibility for your life is radically, inescapably yours. That does not mean you are to blame for everything that has happened to you. It means that from this moment forward, you are responsible for what you do next. Radical responsibility is not about guilt, it is about power. As long as you outsource your freedom, waiting for permission, approval, or rescue, you remain trapped. You may tell yourself that you cannot leave the job until someone guarantees another opportunity, that you cannot end the relationship until someone else validates your choice, that you cannot change until the world changes with you. But these are illusions. Waiting is a strategy of the ego, designed to keep you in the familiar, no matter how suffocating it may be. The system you live in benefits from this passivity. It wants you obedient, dependent, distracted. It rewards compliance with small doses of comfort: a paycheck, a like, a holiday sale, a streaming subscription. These distractions keep you sedated, so you never have to ask the most dangerous question of all: am I truly living, or just existing? As long as you keep waiting, the system wins. But there comes a breaking point, a moment when you realize that no external rescue is coming, and that is not tragedy but opportunity. Because the instant you stop waiting, you begin. The instant you accept that no one will carry you, you stand. The instant you stop outsourcing responsibility, you reclaim your life. Taking responsibility does not mean you will have certainty. In fact, it often means stepping into uncertainty. You will not be given a manual, a map, or a guarantee. What you will have is your inner compass, the quiet, persistent voice that says, "This is not me. I cannot stay here. I must move." That voice is your soul, and radical responsibility means choosing to listen to it above all else. This choice is not glamorous. There will be no applause, no obvious rewards at first. Often, it happens in silence, without witnesses. You decide to leave the job that poisons you. You choose to end the relationship that drains you. You commit to confronting the shadow you have avoided for years. You take one step toward freedom, even while trembling. And in doing so, you mark the beginning of maturity, not the maturity defined by age or social status, but by authenticity. Jung warned that the unlived life is a disease. Most people die of it slowly, one day at a time, without even realizing it. Radical responsibility is the cure. It is the refusal to continue dying in slow motion. It is the decision to claim the life that has always been yours but has been postponed for too long. And what lies beyond this responsibility? Real life. Not the life that others scripted for you, but the life your soul has been longing to live. On the other side of fear, beyond the collapse of illusions, beyond the refusal to wait for rescue, there is authenticity. There is presence. There is freedom. The choice is now. No more waiting. No more illusions. No more masks. Radical responsibility is the key, and with it, the door to real life finally opens.